Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Meanwhile, here on Earth.
Good evening, and thank you, great radio voice of Race Hobbs. I am your intrepid host, Peter Robbins, and this is Meanwhile Here on Earth on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. You can watch or listen at no cost at KGRA DB for digital broadcasting or on the KGRA's YouTube channel, and that for the next few days. Thereafter, programs can only be viewed by KGRA subscribers at kgradb.com. If you subscribe to KGRA, you will get a 30% discount if you enter the code word Peter, P-E-T-E-R, as your subscription code. You also have the option of a 3-day free subscription. So take 3 days off from work and listen to hundreds of broadcasts until your eyes cross. The first 30 episodes of Meanwhile Here on Earth are available on YouTube until the sun itself burns out. You can also listen, audio only, at Spreaker, SPREAKER.com, as also at no cost. Special feature tonight, coming up at 10 o'clock, 1 hour after this show ends. My producer, Bill Forte, will be having a live skywatch for Geminid, of the Geminid meteor shower, which is tonight. And that will be from Bill's extraordinary telescope setup at his home in New York State. Without further ado, though, tonight's first guest, we have two, is Jordan Pease, and he is the founder and director of the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Events Center. Jordan first became fascinated with metaphysics and the paranormal in 1989, after accounts of a roommate's unbelievable UFO experiences rekindled his curiosity in fringe subjects. Jordan's interest quickly snowballed, and that's an understatement, into an enormous hunger for more and more information, which eventually led to the founding of the facility. The Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center is located in southern Oregon's Rogue River Valley in the beautiful town of Ashland and was established in 2002. With an emphasis on practical solutions to the world's critical challenges, RVML's mission is to provide easy access to information that inspires, heals, and connects. After a career in music and theater production in the San Francisco Bay Area, Jordan earned an AS degree in electronic communications in 1995 and later studied sociology, psychology, and communications at Sonoma State University in Cotati, California, and Southern Oregon University in Ashland. In addition to his work at RVML's as executive director, Jordan continues to do audiovisual production work for large conferences around the country, including the center's own Architects of the New Paradigm Conference Series and the Observation Deck Virtual Event Campus. His locations on the internet are the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library, rvml.org, Architects of the New Paradigm, which is anpconference.com, Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library on YouTube channel, and Facebook is at Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library, Twitter at RVML Director. For the second hour of the show, Jordan and I are going to be joined by Ron Janix, who is the founder of the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual events platform closely simulating a live in-person experience using avatars to navigate within a campus. It's an online gathering place where you can meet people and attend fascinating events. And I can tell you that for a fact. And we will come back to Ron again at the top of the hour. So without further ado, Jordan Pease, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth, my friend.
Oh, my friend Peter, it's so great to be here with you. I rarely took the opportunity to do these kinds of things, so I'm just so honored and appreciate so much you recognizing the work that we do here in Ashland. And I'm glad to be speaking with you today. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, it's my pleasure. And before the show, when we were chatting, I was reminded of how great it was to see you again after a lot of years of not seeing you. Certainly a bunch since the pandemic and not able to attend live events together. But in October, we both had the privilege of being guests of Robert Salas at the very special and memorable press conference at the National Press Club on UFOs influencing nuclear weaponry in this country and abroad. And again, a wonderful few days reconnecting with you there.
It was so serendipitous how we both happened to be attending that event together. So it was a delight to see you there in the audience.
Yeah. Up until, as you know, I've visited Ashland a number of times over the years, but the last time was in the 90s, which was pretty much right before the center became an actual place. And until you sent me the images that you did, I had no idea how sweeping and how extraordinary the facility was. And as a committed bibliophile, your library, the shots that we'll be seeing tonight, literally made my jaw drop. But before we get into any of that, all these things begin often with just one individual, with an idea, a passion, a commitment to making something real that up until then had not been real. And in some cases, once that facility or idea or organization began to exist, it going on to be a model for other groups to make a reality in their communities around the country. So let's start at the beginning. Are you originally from Oregon? Where were you born?
I was born in Berkeley, California in January 1968. I like to think of myself as an Oregonian once removed. Both my parents are from Oregon originally. My mother, Baker City, Oregon, Eastern Oregon, and my father, Bend, Oregon, which is very central here. Ashland is only 22 miles over the California border, so a lot of people think of Southern Oregon as being similar to Portland, Oregon, which is at the other north end of the state in terms of the way the weather is. So we don't like to tell this to the Californians that the weather here is very similar to Northern California weather. So Ashland's about 2,000 feet where we are right now. It's supposed to snow tonight, but snow here is hardly an issue at all. It's fun to see the dusting of snow on the hills, but down here in the valley, it's rarely an issue. So it's a great place to live. I was attracted here very serendipitously, like a lot of people are. I hear a lot of stories over the years about how people just stumble across this place and feel a strong attraction. And that's certainly my story. March 13th, 2001 was my first day in the Rogue Valley.
For me, as you know, my first trip there was to see one of my oldest and dearest friends, Rabbi David Zaslow, who you know from Community Affairs.
Tremendous man, such a friend of this community, Rabbi David, we call him.
He is. He's been a guest on our show, and
wonderful.
I love him like a brother. And if you happen to be listening, David, hi. I had to laugh because when you said you were born in Berkeley in 1968, my first thought was nothing special going on there that year. Just a hotbed for progressive thinking, to put it mildly. You have siblings?
Yes, I'm the oldest of three. I have two younger sisters, and we're 4 years apart each. So 4 years younger and then 8 years younger.
Well, we
get to spend Christmas with in just a couple of weeks too. I'm excited to see my sisters and their adorable families, and you know, Uncle Jordan and the nieces, and Christmas morning with the presents and all that sort of stuff. I can't get enough of that.
How wonderful. Well, we do have that in common, being the oldest of three and two wonderful sisters each. tell me a bit about your parents. Did any of the influence that you are now caught up in living your life around come from them? Or, yeah, talk a bit about your folks.
Sure. Well, I think my situation with regard to that is quite typical. And as you said in the introduction, thank you for that great introduction, by the way. It's so often the case, attending as many conferences as I have over the years, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There's a lot to say about conferences in my career. It's so typical that it's the one spouse or it's the one offspring that has deep interest in these subjects, to an obsession. Oftentimes, as you can relate, I'm sure. And the rest of the family wants nothing to do with it. So I absolutely play that black sheep role with regard to all of my family, actually. And so, especially around holiday times, I know to, keep my thoughts to myself about, some of these subjects that you and I both have such familiarity with and high esteem, the import of so many of these subjects, as you well know, Peter. So in that sense, I already said the black sheep phenomena. But, and I understand it's a challenge. I mean, generally speaking, I'm coming from a very mainstream background with very little interest in these kinds of things. And like you said in the introduction, 1989, I just happened to have a roommate who would go on and on and on and on about, incredible UFO kinds of experiences. You know how a dog will just twist its head sideways in curiosity? That was very much me listening to my roommate go on I lived with him for about a year. And during that time, I just heard all kinds of incredible stuff that it had nowhere to land. Emphasizing this is 1989, no internet, no web browsers or anything like that for the average person to get educated on these subjects like it is today. Almost feels like a different world, doesn't it, about the information that we gleaned from books back in those days. I'm certainly appreciating the library behind you there, Peter. I recognize just by the spines many of those titles, actually. So in brief answer to your question, it was a bit of a struggle with my ostracization. Is that a word? The black sheep phenomenon.
It is. It is now.
It is now. So, but kudos to my parents for retooling their how to appreciate their son's choice of careers. And so there certainly was rocky for a while. My mother is saying, Jordan, I don't want to hear about you talking about Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Projects and all that kind of stuff. And she literally said to me one time, when are you going to go make me some grandbabies? With this annoyed tone in her voice, not understanding at all, like I was, especially back then, early 2001, completely in the deep end about all things UFO disclosure related.
Yeah. What did your dad do for a living?
He was a college professor, actually, at Cal State Berkeley there, taught geology, biology. He went on to run a cattle ranch in Napa County, California, a little bit north of where we grew up. He's retired now, and he and my mom travel the world.
Fabulous. That's great. Growing up, did you have, as a kid, and I mean like elementary school, have any particular interest in these non-standard outsider subjects?
Very little in any way that I had facility to explore. So in preparation for the kinds of questions I knew you'd be asking me here, I was reflecting on early childhood and interest in these kinds of things. I mean, it's so interesting that we have small experiences in our distant past that then at some future point, you start to learn things and have different understandings that put things in context a little bit. I don't consider myself an experiencer at all, frankly. That's not to say, though, that I haven't had strange experiences, but certainly not like a lot of people, without question, are having extraordinarily challenging and strange and marvelous and wonderful and terrifying kinds of experiences. And those are incredibly interesting to learn about and hear. And so much of what brings me back to the conferences is more and more hunger to hear, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Not to jump too quickly in the interview here about what I have to say about the conference experiences. But for me, nothing too significant that's worth, sharing anecdotes about exactly. So the kinds of television shows and the kinds of books that I was interested in back then, the little bit that was available compared to now, as you know, it's incredible with, 500 channels of cable television, and so much of it is UFO related these days. I mean, just flipping through the channels on any given night in a hotel room or something, when I look at mainstream television, there's another History Channel program. Oh, there's Richard Dolan again. Oh, there's, so it's just incredible now in the last 10 years or so, thanks to media producers putting these kinds of subjects together for a mainstream general public audience. But back then, not such a thing, except for programs that I'm sure you'll recall, Peter. Leonard Nimoy's In Search Of, for example.
Yes, of course.
That program was definitely a favorite of mine at the time.
Unsolved Mysteries.
That was a little bit later. I'm thinking, back in the
70s.
Late 70s, early 80s for things like In Search Of. So that kind of stuff I just gobbled up when I had access to those kinds of things.
By the time you were in high school, if you had any time for leisure reading, I'm guessing that some of your reading involved the subjects at hand, but what other subjects or what kind of books interested you the most?
Yeah, well, as you can see by my biography and the pictures that I've shared with you, I'm quite the book guy these days. Yeah. In childhood and in my teenage years, I wasn't even much of a science fiction reader, actually. I'm dyslexic. Reading is very challenging for me.
You and me both.
I'll make here, being the librarian and archivist that I am. It really is a difficult thing for me to keep, reading. So, of course, I do it, but how often do I really finish a book? Very rarely, honestly. It's like, what's in the table of contents here? What's in the index here? So I feel like I'm a really good archivist kind of a person. Yeah. And that, obviously is a key piece of the career that I've chosen here. When people come to our library and they're asking about a particular subject, I'm running through my memory bank, not so much about my own personal familiarity with the subject or the particular research material, the book, more about, I've familiarized myself with the contents of those kinds of books. Yes. So for me, it's absolutely been the kinds of things that we're producing right here. Podcasts, radio shows, Coast to Coast AM, certainly all the way back to Art Bell days and all the way through to modern with George Norrie. It's certainly a big piece of my education over the years, all the TV shows that we've talked about. Back in the VHS videotape days, my whole, living room wall was covered with that kind of stuff. Absolutely. That I would voraciously gobble up. And then, of course, audiobooks. Thank God for things like audible.com. Yes. Just down the street here, by the way, I have to give a little plug for Ashland, Oregon. Not even a mile from where I'm sitting is a place formerly known as Blackstone Audio. So much of the material that people listen to through audible.com is recorded just right down the street here. I just love knowing that because I'm such a consumer of that product. And I just love it. Thank God for those things.
That is a wonderful thing. I agree. And from my theater days, I'm very gratified to know that so many of the wonderful performers that I've worked with or that we revere, this is one of the things that they do. Yes. They are often the people that read these books to us. You remind me as somebody who grew up dyslexic, and again, for us, it was years before the term was even definable. It challenged me in my developing my reading skills, but once I got it, and nothing could hold me back. For me, though, my dyslexia still impacts on anything to do with numbers. I will still look at a 6 and write a 9, and I have to always double and triple check my columns and things moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about this roommate whose accounts so impacted on your life. Can you be specific without violating any confidences about some of what he shared with you about his own experiences?
Sure. I appreciate your professionalism and sensitivity that there might be confidences to not violate there. In this man's case, absolutely not the case. That was so much of his thing at the time. The man's name is Stephen DeGrazia, is the man's name, formerly harkens from where you're from, Peter, New York City is where he grew up, New Jersey, actually. Mm-hmm. And let's see, boy, there's so much to say there. Like the biography that you just read indicated, at that time, this is 1989, living in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area, a town called Richmond, California, working as a sound engineer for a major sound company, a contractor there in the Bay Area, doing live sound production for all the nightclubs in San Francisco and places like that. So Steve was just a colleague of mine, a very gifted sound engineer, award-winning. Some of the projects that he worked on won local awards and things. Very brilliant, very, very smart. I only just kind of knew him as a colleague. And then, skip over that part of the story, how he became my roommate. But the part I was emphasizing, this is not a person who's prone to making stuff up or self-aggrandizing things for attention. Not at all. This is a very level-headed man who is very technically skilled and, a good observer, all that kind of stuff. Very keen ear, obviously, as a sound engineer. So as you know, acuities in different senses interrelate. So this is not a person that was misidentifying, aerial phenomena or atmospheric, or what do you say, meteorological phenomena, anything like that. So much to say. Again, emphasizing there was no internet at the time for him to be learning these kinds of things. So he would come home and just go on and on and on, cathartically, needing just to kind of talk out loud to kind of put his own thoughts together about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, well, there's just so much to say there. There's just so much to say. I mean, part of why I could summarize that a little bit, I don't want to spend too much time on this particular piece. It's a sad psychological phenomena, frankly, like it is for so many people, but especially I just want to emphasize the times in 1989. There was no support groups to speak of that people would know how to, because there was no internet to go find that.
There was literally one, and that was one that Bud Hopkins started, which went on to become the model for other support groups around the country and the world. But at the time, to the best of my knowledge, like you, it was the only one, and we didn't advertise, so to say.
That's kind of the point. So even if there was support groups for experiencers like my roommate, Steve, how would he possibly find one? So much of what he was doing with me was, you could characterize it as, de facto support group, even though I had no concept and very little belief, frankly. And that's why the dog turning its head sideways idea, like, I know this guy isn't crazy. I know he's very intelligent, but God, the kinds of stuff he's talking about has no place to land within me. So I would be very curious to hear more and more and more and more and more. It wasn't so much about his UFO encounters exactly. It was all this kind of, for lack of a better phrase, conspiracy theory sort of stuff that went along with that. And that's why it was curious to me, especially maybe 10 years retrospect, that once I kind of began my own journey into these rabbit holes, and I would remember, oh my God, Steve told me about the Trilateral Commission, for example, and the Council on Foreign Relations, for example, and the Bilderberg Group, for example. And how would he possibly know any of this? Again, 1989 or so, without some kind of an internet resource or some kind of a mentor, friend, teacher to educate him about those kinds of things. He talked about, information being downloaded to him, which is a very common thing, as you know, Peter, within these fields, that people get these, informational downloads. Yeah. There's just almost too much to say there to try and give it all a summary. But why it's germane to the story here is it's what, I think I used the word rekindled in my biography there. My interest in French subjects, I think is how I languaged that. And it certainly did. But it took a good 10 years, actually, for me to really revisit all that. And then it's the classic story of I was at that Barnes & Noble bookstore in downtown Santa Rosa, California, Sonoma County, where I was living at the time. This is the 10-year later time now. So this is, 91 or so, when I'd moved an hour north in the Bay Area to a place called Sonoma County, California. Mm-hmm. That book lit up on the shelf, and it just kind of fell into my hands, and I turned to that right page. Everybody's got a story like this. That particular book, I just want to give credit to the author of that book, a very obscure book called 6 Viewpoints on the Alien Presence.
Yes.
Do you know this book?
Edited by Michael Lindemann. Exactly.
Michael Lindemann was the editor, because it's a collection of 6 essays.
Very grounded essays by academics as well as other people who were extremely believable and very well credentialed.
That was kind of my first book. Actually, skipping back in the story just a teensy bit, shortly after my roommate's experience, I moved in with a girlfriend, and we go on camping trips in areas of southern Utah, the canyon areas. And, sitting alone in a tent with my girlfriend reading on her initiative, reading Whitley Strieber's second book, Transformation. Yep. So in some ways, that was really kind of my first book on the subjects, the book Transformation. But then back to the 91 time frame, it was the Michael Lindemann book that really kind of opened my eyes. And that's what really began the snowballing for me. Very much in the closet, if you know what I mean, using that kind of a phrase, nobody to talk to, very similar to my roommate's experience.
At this point, you were making your living in theater or in lighting design, or?
At that time, I was actually working for a children's museum building science exhibits, which was a fantastic career for me for a few years. I really enjoyed that work. But most of my career until 2001, 2002, when I got to Ashland and founded the Metaphysical Library, very trade oriented. The sound engineer work that I did, a lot of electronic stuff. I had a electrical contractor's license for a few years that I utilized in Sonoma County when I lived there. Nothing about running a nonprofit, nothing about managing a team, nothing about grant writing, nothing. I was a very hands-on, trade oriented, stagehand, sound engineer. blue collar, kind of work, doing that sort of stuff. Nothing about administrative, anything. So all the skills necessary to run a nonprofit like I do now, bootstrapped is the term I used, with great mentors.
Fabulous. I know for myself, before I became obsessed in the subject of UFOs, and that obsession ultimately mutated into a very strong interest and a career. But years before that, being a fairly open-minded person and very curious, and having had the good fortune to travel extensively when I was 24 years old, and looking back now, a year on the road, and much of it in places one could not go to now if you're a sane person and don't want to risk your life or health, that my mind was already open to other non-standard subjects. I was in my 20s when I stumbled across Edgar Cayce, for example, and up until reading Cayce's case histories and philosophies and writings, I thought of people who identified themselves as psychics or channelers, in particular, as, essentially con people who, roll your eyes back in your head, talk in a funny voice, make believe you're a disembodied 5,000-year-old spirit and collect some money and go on to con the next person. But it was a very rude awakening that there is a great deal more to our reality than is dreamt of. And I'm wondering for you, if over the course of your evolution, in terms of your thinking, if it was something like that for you, of being introduced to ancient mysteries here, reincarnation there, doing enough basic research to get a sense of whether or not you took this seriously, and then moving forward with that as part of your non-standard portfolio, if you will.
Great question, Peter. That's a great question for anybody in this field, in these areas of interest. For me, and this kind of is maybe a good segue to talking about the library a little bit and how that came to be. I know right what you're asking, and I appreciate that question. Again, thank you. For me, I made the wrong assumption in the early days of Metaphysical Library, speaking about 2001, 2002, closely following the Disclosure Project and Stephen Greer. I want to speak to that shortly, because that really is what got me going on these subjects. Mm-hmm. I had made kind of a false assumption, as it turns out, that a lot of other people like me, coming from kind of a mainstream background with only cursory interest at best in some of these paranormal ideas, metaphysical ideas and principles, that waking up to the awareness of the reality of, an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race, as Steve Bassett has coined that phrase appropriately, would automatically, like it was for me, become that stepping stone, opening of the door to a whole new arena of areas of study, of interest, especially spirituality, things like this, that previously were completely unknown to me. And I have found that to be untrue, that the idea that an awareness of the UFO phenomena, the reality of especially the cover up of the UFO phenomena, once you start to realize for me, another way to say that in a more concise way, perhaps, is like, whoa, if we've been lied to about this the whole time, what else have I been missing this whole time? And so maybe that's a better answer to your previous question about what really, attracted me into this. In one sentence, that's what it is. Whoa, something's really going on here.
Yes.
What else am I being not told? What else is not making it to the mainstream news sources?
That sounds very familiar to me. And I've known, and you have too, any number of people who it's kind of a personal BCAD, where something enters into your transom, an experience, an account of somebody whose word you would absolutely stand by no matter what, an observation, something profound that you've read, and you go through a door. You go through a door and you realize, I'm not going to be the same after this on a certain level. And I have to be careful about who I communicate my enthusiasm, my fascination,
Yes.
in some cases, my overt belief.
Yes.
And sometimes belief can be a very double-edged sword because it's belief based on sometimes very little. And you are doing a tightrope walk. You can be very wrong, or you can commit yourself to a belief based on your faith in that belief, and all of a sudden you're in the world of something akin to religion, or possibly in a much more dangerous way of a cult.
Yes.
But hopefully that forces one to pursue the subject to the point where you know it's grounded, but grounded in an outsider world where you, again, have to be selective about who you share this sensibility with. And, if anything, the library has exploded that.
Yes.
That this is now mainstream. If you live in Ashland, you know this facility. You've gone to events at it. It has piqued your curiosity. It has challenged your thinking. And it's even, been the seed for other things like it around the country. And that, I think, is incredibly healthy. But
thank you again for that, Peter. And what you just spoke to is exactly what I mean about the closeted experience. And this is really what ultimately catalyzed me, especially after my experience with Steve Greer and the Disclosure Project. Maybe we can start those slides here in a minute.
Yeah.
To want to get that experience back. I wanted to be founding a facility that gave to my new community, Ashland, Oregon, when I moved here in 2001, the resource that I did not have when I was studying this, 20 years prior, after my roommate experience. Barely be able to find books. Certainly not going to find a community to talk about these ideas with. So much of what founded the Metaphysical Library had to do exactly that, provide a safe space for people that are otherwise very nervous to talk about these ideas. And that's probably the best service that we've provided, actually, beyond even any of the informational resources. It's like, people can let their hair down when they come into the library and talk freely about things. And they do, as you can imagine.
No doubt. Before we go to the first slide, I'd just like to say from my personal experience, Ashland, Oregon is not just a beautiful, special town in the Northwest. And I don't want to mystify or get romanticize it, but it is a particularly special place. It's located in a very beautiful part of your extraordinary state. The water in Ashland sounds kind of a goofy thing to say, and this for me going back to the latter 1970s when I first visited there. And bottled water was the plague of bottled water on a certain level, particularly the bottles, specifically the bottles, was yet to become a phenomena in America. You could buy Perrier, French imported carbonized water. And the water in Ashland that I had coming out of people's taps and out of the fountains in the park was the best water I ever remember having, and it's stuck in my mind. The other
Cheers
thing
to that, Peter.
Yeah, there you go. Send me some of that stuff. We'll pipe it in. The other thing is, as somebody who grew up loving theater, Ashland has either the finest or vying with the finest Shakespeare festival in America, bar none, right up there with the great Shakespeare festivals in the United Kingdom. And that stuck in my mind as well. Particularly beautiful, wonderful local architecture. I thought a very healthy mix of progressive and conservative thinking. Just a catalyst for a good percentage of artists and folks who were very independent in the way they were living their lives. But again, what was it specifically that brought you to this particular community to start your life in this place as your new home?
The reason I sigh is kind of like it was with the roommate story. There's so many facets to that.
A number of factors involved.
Yeah. The way that summarizes, though, I think I kind of mentioned this earlier, and a lot of people tell this story, especially people that come to the Metaphysical Library. Like in some ways it's ineffable. Like I was trying to get into a master's degree program to get a master's degree. And so I spent 6 months in later part of 2000, traveling all over the Northwest, auditioning, schools for me to tailor the kinds of academic and, study that I wanted to do. I found ideally the campus, the school that I wanted to attend. It's called Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. A lot of the people will know that. Beautiful campus, design your own major, small classes, a lot of interaction with the students, all that kind of stuff, which is exactly what I wanted. Partly what I'm emphasizing is I put a lot of energy and resource into that search, and it started relocating my life to Olympia, Washington. So Ashland, Oregon, and Medford, Oregon, the large community here, just happens to be about the halfway driving point from where I was living in Sonoma County. Sebastopol, California is where I was living at the time, to Olympia. So I would be staying in the little, hotels off the freeway here as the halfway point as I got myself situated up in Olympia. And on the last trip down, after I'd been accepted to the school, had a house rented, had a storage space rented. I'd already taken a U-Haul truck up there with, the beginnings of my belongings. I stopped here in Ashland for the first time, and I knew that there was a Shakespeare festival here. And like we talked about in my background, I have a great interest in theater, especially the production and all that backstage stuff. And so I just took a little short walk downtown Ashland one evening. This would have been early January 2001. And with no good, it took about 20 minutes. And it happened to happen right in front of the Shakespeare stairs, if you know the locale down there. Yeah. I just had this, what do you call it? Just more than an epiphany, just this knowing that just kind of took me over, this is where I belong. And it just happened like that. It was interesting to reflect on that. It still is interesting to reflect on that. I mean, I knew that the school here wasn't what I wanted, Southern Oregon University. I didn't have a job here. I'd never even heard of this place. I grew up 6 hours away from Ashland, Oregon, had never, ever even heard of Ashland, Oregon. Everybody goes 4 hours to Tahoe to go skiing or 6 hours south to go to Los Angeles. Nobody talks about going north to Mount Shasta, which is just 1 hour south of here.
Sure.
Anyway, so it was very, very unlikely that I gave up completely on that plan and never attended that school. Evergreen University, Evergreen State College, and always wonder what my life would have been like if I followed that tact. But it was just this strong attraction, and become an attachment to the great community here that I now call home, Ashland, Oregon. And I really do feel at home here. I just wanted to emphasize again, lots of other people tell that same kind of story. They'd never heard of this place. They felt a strong attraction. They stumble across it. They, give up lots of things in their life to make it work here. It's a tough economy here. It's hard for people to live here. Small. It's only 22,000 people is the approximate population here of Ashland. The greater population of the Rogue Valley is, a few 100,000 with Medford, but Ashland is kind of sequestered on its own over here. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
I should also say before we go to the first slide that the Shakespeare Festival is geared to be performed outdoors, as well as having a marvelous indoor facility, which is a venue for a lot more than the great works of the Bard. And I was on my first or second visit when David Zaslow and his partner Steve were running, as I recall, a jazz festival or concert series. And not only did I get to hear the Count Basie Orchestra, one of my all-time favorites from, the big band era, but I got to meet and spend a little time with the Count himself, which I'll never forget. And, just the kind of cafe society, the main street, that feeling of every shop here is kind of interesting to me. I like these buildings. I could go on, but I'm not. Let's go to your first image here.
Okay, so this is kind of picking up where I'd spoken a little bit before. I was, kind of in the closet about all these sort of things. Just prior to, this is a picture that I took myself. All the pictures that we're going to show here were taken by myself in a little throwaway disposable camera. So this particular one is the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on, as you see there on the slide, May 9th, 2001. This is Stephen Greer's launch event of what a lot of people know as the Disclosure Project. Mm-hmm. So pretty much my life changed on a dime. It was actually the day before this, May 8th, when I went back there and immediately became very, part of that whole project without even expecting to be at all. It just all kind of happened. And like you were saying, is there any kind of a moment when my beliefs got catalyzed different than a lot of experiencers? Like I've never really seen a UFO, for example. That's oftentimes what people will say, or have some kind of an entity encounter or some very undeniably, paradigm shattering kind of an experience. For me, it was meeting these witnesses, the military people that courageously came forward, 22 of them on this particular day, and courageously told their stories. There's a picture of them. This is the panel of 22 witnesses. I'm acquainted with every one of these men. Some of them are deceased now, unfortunately, of course, but something about the appreciation that came back from the other side of the table, so to speak, toward me and the rest of the Disclosure Project facilitation staff from these esteemed men and a few women, for giving them the opportunity to cathartically, finally, tell their stories. And I think a lot of the people watching and listening to this here, Peter, will know what I'm speaking to, the kinds of stories that these men are telling about, and the idea that they're under secrecy oaths and aren't allowed to speak with even their families and their wives. Imagine what it's like if you're a Clifford Stone, picking up extraterrestrial corpses off the Roswell desert floors, for example, coming home and, hey, honey, how was work today? and can't talk about those kinds of experiences. So one of the things that's just so still 20 years later burned into my memories are the feeling of appreciation from these high-ranking military people to little old me and the rest of the facilitation staff, like I said, giving them the opportunity. At that particular time, I didn't really deserve the credit. I had just joined the project effectively the night before. So the military people, the witnesses there, assumed that I was very much part of the facilitation of all that. I became that from that point forward, very much so. But in that particular moment, I wasn't.
Moving on to this next image.
Oh, I put this one in here because this dear woman who it almost makes me teary, Donna Hare, she just passed about a week ago or so. I noticed on Steve Bassett's website, wrote a great obituary to her. So she's a NASA employee, former NASA person, subcontractor to some of the military projects that would literally retouch UFOs out of lunar photographs. Some of my other dear friends that I'm still dear friends with, on the man on the left there, that's Dan Willis. He's one of the witnesses. To Donna's left is a friend named Antonio Pinto, who helped build the original Disclosure Project website. And there's me looking pretty young 20 years ago. Oh, yeah, I just enjoyed this picture of me in front of that banner. I'm very proud of my involvement with the Disclosure Project and all that we got to do there. I mean, Steve Greer really takes a lot of heat in this community, as you well know, Peter. But you got to hand it to him. It takes a personality type like Stevens to be able to go toe-to-toe with the government on these kind of projects and make the kind of progress that he did. So for me to have the role that I did in helping facilitate Steve Greer's work and all the other people that were involved in that really is something that I feel very proud of in my career. And it really launched my career, actually, which I guess is kind of the point of this, including my few slides here of the Disclosure Project. It catalyzed it. I guess that's what we're speaking to here. What really catalyzed what was otherwise kind of a vague curiosity bordering on obsession, but you never can really hang your hat on anything. And for me, it was the testimony of those witnesses, not just those 22. There's more than 500 people that are recorded within the Disclosure Project archive. And you can't deny that. And when you get to meet those people, here's the piece that I meant to include too, just before that, when I was still kind of floundering around before I had discovered Disclosure Project and had a way to get a catalyst for me, which became the catalyst, I started going to the conferences. So I don't know how. I was thinking about it yesterday. How did I actually, in the early 90s, discover the International UFO Congress at the time in Laughlin, Nevada, organized by Bob Brown and his family? That was the place that I finally began to find my tribe, let my hair down. And like I provided a resource here in Ashland, Oregon for people that need to find a community of people to discuss their ideas with. That's where it really began for me. And so much of it was, I want to go meet that guy. I wanted to go meet Michael Lindemann, for example, look him in the eyes, sit in the front row, listen very carefully, watch his body language and all the experiencers, witnesses, et cetera. So that's something I wanted to include about how I became so enamored with the conferences initially as an attendee and then became a member of the production staff for so many of them and continue to be that. So that last picture, that last slide there was kind of taking it all full circle. So and this is a bit of a segue to what we're going to talk about in a little while. Ron Janix. The observation deck. So Ron, my beginnings in the involvement with Ron and the observation deck called me up because he knew I knew a lot of the people involved with the Disclosure Project and say, hey, Jordan, I want to do this retrospective thing on the 20th anniversary. Retrospective, what's a commemoration. And I said, hey, you called the right guy. So let me help you put that together. So in early May this year, we put together this event. The slide is showing the people that we brought together on the observation deck, and we were able to do a virtual conference commemorating Steve Greer's remarkable achievement. Okay, here we go. So this is our storefront here in Ashland, Oregon. We've actually been in 3 locations over the years in Ashland. This is our building that we own and remodeled. It used to be a Chinese restaurant, is what it was for 30-something years before we
That's
took
not
over.
bad karma as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it was a mess. It's one of those things like, where was the health department on this place the whole time?
Yeah.
But after we cleaned all the cockroaches and rodent feces out of there, which was quite an ordeal, let me tell you. The grease just kept coming up through the floor. I mean, it was bizarre.
Oh,
To get the
well, that's paranormal in itself.
Yeah, hadn't characterized it that way, Peter.
No,
perhaps.
but again, at a certain point, you decided to create this facility, something that had never existed before, and you found this space. You put together a team. What was the order that things happened to make this first stage of the center of reality?
Let me see if I can do that concisely. Had just moved to Ashland, Oregon. This is approximately beginning of March 2001. Did get myself in school here studying theater arts and trying to finish the sociology degree, I think, the psychology degree at that time. And then May 9th came and I got involved in the Disclosure Project. I'm skipping over the part of the story how I actually got involved, but I basically showed up on May 8th and became part of the staff pretty much that day. This slide shows the location, proximity of Ashland, Oregon. The red dot there is Ashland, 22 miles over the California border, but I just wanted to give
Yes.
Just to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
It's really not Portland. It's much more like, Northern California.
Yeah.
So did the Disclosure Project thing, dropped out of college. And boy, that was a hard decision to make, especially to tell my parents, especially my mom, the whole Heaven's Gate.
Dedicating myself to UFO secrecy being overthrown as opposed to getting a traditional education. I'm sure you'll be supporting me on that.
That was my thinking, trying to tell my parents that, not so much. The Heaven's Gate Marshall Applewhite thing was in the headlines right around that time. So hey, Mom, I'm going to drop out of college. Yeah. I'm still working on your grandkids. And I'm going to go follow Steve Greer and go do this Disclosure Project tour. That did not land too well, especially with my mother, who assumes that Steve Greer is Marshall Applewhite's suicide cult kind of a thing. And
right. I actually met Marshall Applewhite the week beforehand. It's a whole other story. Another story, another time.
I recently watched a fascinating but tragic documentary about that whole thing that helped educate myself about all that. Yeah, a bizarre element. So just to kind of finish that little bit of a story arc. So dropped out of school, went on the Disclosure Project tour. That was 18 months, roughly, traveling with Dr. Greer and the witnesses and the project all over the country. After the May 9th event there in DC to do these lectures that we conducted all across the country. So the excitement of all that, the way I characterized those times in my life was fatigued with excitement because of the paradigm shattering things that were happening for me all the time and the kind of people I got to meet, especially some of the people that would come to me at the back of the auditoriums following the lectures, wanting to, get a meeting with Dr. Greer, and had all kinds of incredible stories about. I mean, it's one thing all the people that people know their names and their testimonies are recorded in the videos and the books that Dr. Greer put together, but so many other people that I was a liaison to came forward, and boy, some of the stories that we heard and just incredible stuff. I mean, people like to say that it's fringy and that, only low educated people are involved in these kinds of things and these kinds of beliefs. Boy, I can really tell you through my experience, a lot of it through the Disclosure Project days, there are some very, very, very serious people that when they're given the opportunity and know that they have a safe space to talk about it, have just some incredible things to talk about. I'm
moving us along a bit here just because, believe it or not, we are coming
Sure,
into...
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you. So here's just a quick layout of our current facility that we moved into in 2017. So you can see there we have a conference room that was formerly a coffee shop, but the pandemic shut that down. So we repurposed that into a conference room that we let the community use for free. Also doubles as in fact, there's the picture of that room. So this is our conference facility, doubles as a bookshop for us. Go ahead, next slide, please. And here is the lending library portion of our facility there. There's a lot of material. So we use the Dewey Decimal System. It's just like a real library, we like to joke. So it's library cards, Dewey Decimal.
It is a real library. I'm knocked out.
Thank you. But it's so much of the way that we have it organized and cataloged and all the work it takes to do that. Most of this collection is donated, either collections that I go find and bring back home. And a lot of people have been extraordinarily generous. So many of these books have formerly belonged in the libraries of, researchers and authors that a lot of people recognize. We recently took over Wendell Stevens' archive. That was a huge one. Gabriel Green was one of our first donors.
That archive when John Rao had it and
Correct.
Spent several days going through it. And what I'd like to do right now is,
Sure.
Would you set up the first clip that we're about to watch?
Yes, a good. Okay, this is a 1 minute clip. I'm sorry, a 1 minute video that we produced about a year or so ago. It's 1 minute, and this is just to educate the general public about what we do.
Okie doke.
Come discover Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and find an exceptional collection of books, audiobooks, and DVDs to borrow, purchase, or exchange. An annual fee of $30 enables checkouts of materials on a surprising variety of fascinating, useful, and life-enriching titles. Discover things here not commonly available elsewhere. You can also trade books on all subjects at no cost in the media exchange with thousands of fiction and nonfiction titles. Membership not required. A donor-supported nonprofit since 2002, RVML's mission is providing easy access to information that inspires, heals, and connects with an emphasis on solutions to the world's critical challenges. Aren't you curious? Discover it for yourself at Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library in Ashland, Oregon. There's truly something for everyone here. Search the catalog and watch videos at rvml.org.
Boy, outstanding.
It was a lot of fun making that video. We did that right in the heart of the pandemic, too. The camera people didn't want us taking our masks off.
No doubt. And another shot of the...
Hold this shot up for a moment, Peter, please. This is one of the largest collections of UFO extraterrestrial research archives in the world. I'm very proud of this collection here. It's a tremendous amount of work to catalog this, acquire all this, and then catalog it. And just like I'm looking over your shoulder, Peter, you might even recognize some of the spines here readable in this one. You can even see a Wendell Stevens book in the top right, the white cover there.
Exactly.
So this is an underutilized resource here locally, frankly. What we say is we have this thing we call distance lending. So people that might be listening that live nowhere close to Ashland, Oregon, that have legitimate research needs, please contact us and we'll hook you up with some of the resources we have here. I think the next slide, please. Yes, this is one of the rarest collections anywhere. So what this picture represents is so much of my last 20 years of my career is these are DVDs on the shelves at the library.
Oh my gosh.
Most of what's in the center of that picture is the International UFO Congress. This does not exist anywhere, including the copyright holders, Bob Brown and his family, to all this material. There is no such thing as a comprehensive collection of every single one of the lectures ever recorded by International UFO Congress. Most of the MUFON conference lectures are here. Prophets Conference, the Contact in the Desert recordings there, recognize them on the left of that picture. This is an incredible resource that is way too underutilized by our local community.
I have to tell you, Jordan, I had no idea that this vast a collection of lectures from our major conferences, starting with Bob's extraordinary International UFO Congress, existed anywhere.
Yes.
Congratulations. This is a feat that's really unequaled anywhere that I'm aware of in analog terms, where you can come and just borrow these things.
And when I say nowhere else in the world, I'm also speaking about streaming. I mean, some of this material exists, for a cost that people can go, purchase these things, especially the Contact in the Desert materials. But the early days of the UFO Congress, no such thing. So I'm very proud to and privileged to be able to provide this. But I guess I'm trying to emphasize that, hey, you guys, come on down. There's a great amount of material here that you're not going to find anywhere else.
And while you're there, you're going to have an opportunity to see one of the most special communities I'm aware of that I've ever visited in the United States.
Indeed. And here's some members of it right here. This is our grand opening. I think this was
great.
I forget what month this was, 2017, when we cleaned up all the grease in the former Chinese restaurant and opened up. This is the local Chamber of Commerce group. It's called Greeters. And as you can see, I'm very proudly cutting the ribbon on that with those giant scissors. Some dear, dear friends in this picture too.
Well, you should. Jeez.
Oh, I threw this one in. We're serious metaphysicians by day, but at night, talk about letting your hair down. This was a Halloween party we did in 2019. I just love this picture.
It's a fabulous shot.
Isn't it fun? But we've certainly had all kinds of different gatherings at all of our different facilities. Not so much in this particular facility because the pandemic shut us down.
Yeah.
But this just shows that we like to have fun here too. This one I thought was appropriate since it's holidays. So this is
Indeed.
our staff locally. On the left, that's Nikki Clifton, who's our event coordinator, and that's Christina Stewart is our library manager. Christina happens to be the niece of Daniel Sheehan, is how I got connected.
Oh, for gosh sakes. I love it.
And so she relocated herself to Ashland to take the job, helping me run the library. So she's kind of the
Absolutely
one
brilliant.
that organizes and catalogs all those books.
And here's your.
And I just wanted to give a plug that it is a nonprofit, and most
Yes.
of that collection is donated. And I just really wanted to say thank you, very sincere thank you to the people that support us here in Ashland and across the country.
I know my good friend Scott Santa recently.
Yes, I know Scott. He's one of our donors recently. Yes.
Great guy and another committed bibliophile and dear friend.
I'm watching the clock, Peter. Do we need to take a break at 5?
We do. And in fact, this is Peter Robbins with my guest Jordan Pease. Meanwhile, here on Earth, return to us with us in 3 minutes when we will be bringing on our second guest, Ron Janix. See you shortly.
Meanwhile, here on Earth.
Hello, I'm Tony Rathman, one of the hosts of KGRA's Monday night show called Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. If you have not had the opportunity to see this show, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you. We cover fantastic paranormal evidence captured by our Entity Voices team, as well as bringing on experienced and up-and-coming investigators who share with us incredible paranormal captures.
This one I will let you give an intro to, because this actually was in a castle, and this one is titled Energy.
Oh, okay. I was in a place, my favorite castle in Scotland. It's called Balgony Castle. Beautiful place, and as a matter of fact, it's going to be one of the places we ghost on the tour. Everybody was talking, and we had a Frank's box there, an actual Frank's box sitting there, and everybody was talking. And finally, I just asked a question, and we got a pretty good answer.
Here is that clip. I love this one. This one's awesome. Here it is.
Is there anything in the castle that we should be afraid of?
The energy.
Wow, that's the energy.
You know what I love about that one is the response is right after the question. So timing to it. The relevance of it is not only answering the question, answering it appropriately. You asked, is there anything to be afraid of? It clearly said the energy. The other thing I love is it has
An accent.
I don't want to pick which European accent, but there is an accent. So let me play that one more time.
It's definitely a Scottish accent. Definitely.
Okay. Here it is again.
Is there anything in the castle that we should be afraid of?
The energy.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
What's even more amazing about that is
Watch us live on KGRADB.com on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific Time. As a special bonus, if you enjoy Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence and would like to support the show and the entire KGRA network of shows, please use promo code 21EVPE to receive a 30% yearly discount to Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence and the entire network of shows on KGRA. Thank you. And we hope to see you in the chat room Monday nights for Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. And don't forget, stay haunted.
And welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth. My guest for the first hour has been Jordan Pease, and it's my pleasure to now bring on our second guest who will be joining us. Ron Janix is founder of the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual event platform closely simulating a live in-person experience using avatars to navigate within a campus. It's an online gathering place where you can meet people and attend fascinating events. Attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture. Meet new friends or interact directly with presenters themselves. It's all on the Observation Deck campus. Janix has immersed himself in the UFO paranormal community for many years. Throughout that time, his reading, listening to experts, working with conferences, and doing hundreds of interviews have helped him to build an extensive knowledge of the subject, or more properly said, the subjects. He began podcasting with the show Elevate the Conversation in 2014, then moved on to The Truth Be Told show along with Tony Sweet. In last year, he founded the Observation Deck and launched his show, The Observation Deck with Captain Ron. All of his shows have focused on where his passion lies, new theories and discoveries in the areas of science, technology, history, and the paranormal. His objective remains the same, though, to try and drill down to the heart of what is really going on at the core of these unknown areas of study. You can find Ron on the internet and online at theobservationdk.com, the Observation Deck YouTube channel, on Facebook, The Observation DK, at The Observation DK, Instagram, at The Observation Deck Official, and on Twitter, at Observation DK. And Ron Janix, it's my pleasure to bring you on, and welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth.
Hey, my friend, you guys don't need me. I was enjoying that right there. You know, one thing I want to point out, Peter, that
please,
Jordan also goes and gets these collections from somebody like a Stanton Friedman, for example. I don't know if this is an actual case, but like a Stanton Friedman will pass away, and this guy's got boxes in his garage of archives of research that he's done. Oftentimes that gets thrown out on the curb, and Jordan will tell you, he should tell you right now how he's literally pulled up and seen kids throwing that stuff in the trash, and he saves that and preserves it, which is just another wonderful part about that whole group.
Well, thank you, Ron. It's a public service, and being involved as long as I have, going back more than 40 years, I am aware of lost forever archives, collections, files of dedicated individuals who spent most of their life doing this work, and well-meaning but completely unaware, grieving relatives. Just, it's a lot of paper. It's too sad to go through. Let it go. Now, thank goodness, we have a number of dedicated facilities, of which the center is really one of the major ones, organizing, bringing together this material and preserving it for the future. And for me, that's one of the most exciting aspects of it. I know that our second hour is going to fly at the rate of our first hour. So what we're going to do, if it works for you guys, is Ron, let's spend a little time with you, and then we'll go back into Jordan's material, move through at a lively pace, and bring us right up to the Observation Deck, which I know Jordan has been working with you on a number of extraordinary projects, just even recently. So, Ron, to start with, where are you from and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been out here in LA for probably 25 years now. It's a long time.
Brothers, sisters?
I have a younger brother, and he lives in Cleveland, Ohio, still near my mother. And yeah, they have no interest in this subject either, just like Jordan's family and your family.
Often the case in families, we all differ.
That just seems to be the way. There's no animosity about it. Like they know I have that interest, and they may hear a story from me or whatever, and they listen and, oh, that's nice, but they're not
their thing.
Right.
It cuts both ways. Can I ask what your dad did for a living?
He was a very, very 3D, serious 3D guy. He was he worked in manufacturing at various large manufacturing companies. He was always very much accountant, very much by the book, very 3D. So this stuff really just did not interest him at all. It was just like, wow.
I can relate. It sounds a little like my dad, who is a numbers guy, small businessman, but who once my sister and I began to talk about our sighting as kids and our interest in the subject, followed our interest and became, besides doing his thing, very well read on it. Good friends with Richard Dolan, who doesn't live that far away. My dad lived through a lot of history. Richard, being a historian, had dinner with Timothy Good and Nick Pope in London, spent an afternoon with Travis Walton, who visited the house, both of them very interested in each other. And it was a wonderful family dynamic. But
that's great.
When you were growing up, was any of this material, which the observation deck is becoming better and better known for bringing to a worldwide audience, of interest to you in elementary school, middle school? When did that interest start, and how did it start?
It's so funny that I heard you guys talking about that as well when you said it to Jordan. And I remember specifically that the start for me was In Search Of. And there was this film called The Mysterious Monsters. Do you guys remember that came out? It was in the theater, and it was the first time they showed the Patterson Gimlin film, the Bigfoot. And that was that. They covered three things. It was Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, and Yeti. And that was my first, as a little kid, that I was interested in that. And it was In Search Of. And the first books I read were the same ones that all these guys at the conferences say. It's Chariots of the Gods, it's Communion. And, I read that stuff and was so fascinated by it. And I was also fascinated by the fact that it wasn't on the evening news that night, that it wasn't the lead story on CNN. Wait a minute, didn't you guys, why don't people care about this? And I'm also one of these people who has not, I now have had a sighting, but I've had no real experiences or anything profound, life-changing, certainly. And yet, that doesn't mean to me it's not still possibly real or fascinating. Just because, other people will tell it, that's still an interesting story. And all this research and these different things that Van Daniken talks about, why does the world not know about this? Yeah. Why is this not? I don't know. I feel compelled to make that bridge, because oftentimes I find people that have not had any interest in this, when they get exposed to it, just like myself, do find it very interesting and compelling.
Intellectual curiosity, for me, is the strongest drive mechanism in any of these areas of study. Certainly, without witnesses, experiencers, abductees, we would have little, if any, material to work with, unless we're excavating, ancient civilizations or other mysteries that we can get our hands on without firsthand accounts. But I don't think, bringing up a dear friend and colleague and mentor, the late, great Stanton T. Friedman, I don't recall that Stan ever had a UFO sighting in his life. But he was a scientist. He was a nuclear physicist. He was extremely open-minded, but not as I sometimes like to say, so open-minded that your brain falls out. He was an extremely grounded individual. And one of the things I loved about Stan was he came from that generation where debate and knowing how to debate as opposed to argue was an art form. And just that sensibility, which is somewhat lacking now, informed his becoming one of the most influential people in the world of this area of study. So at what point let me ask you this. What did you study, in higher education before you thought you were going to do this professionally? Where were you headed in terms of, what you were going to do for a living? And
film production. And I minored in English. So it was always in that realm of film production and creating things like that. But I had this interest in this. Even in college is when it really took off for me. That's when I sort of got into listening to Art Bell, and Jordan and I share that as well, how we struggled so hard to get the Art Bell show. And again, we thought, why is this on at 2 a.m? Why isn't this 6 o'clock on NBC? That used to, did you hear what happened last night? Nobody else heard. And I was always struck me as odd that everybody else wasn't as fascinated by this as I was.
Understood.
Yeah.
When did you actually start to attend conferences, begin to work conferences, make a point of meeting these people, learning what they had to say, and starting to feel, I'm sensing where I'm going here, and I'm putting the pieces together, and I'm going to emerge as, a facility, a person, a force in this work. When and how did that really start to completely take shape for you?
I wasn't at all involved in the community or anything, or really even knew there was a community just 7 years ago. I was doing a different podcast, and Tony Sweet owned that station, and he had me fill in and help him once because he knew I had an interest in this subject matter. And next thing you know, it just took off, and I started going to the conferences immediately and immediately immersed myself. Yeah. And I also have a huge series. The one other aspect that I strongly do believe in, because I have experienced myself, is the synchronicity phenomenon. I have had synchronicities that led me to conferences and to things that just feel so far beyond chance that it does feel compelling, or I feel very called to action to be involved in this.
Yeah. Right there with you. Before we go on, let's jump back to you, Jordan, and move through these images, and then we will emerge in the observation deck.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
So glad you're here with me, Ron. And Ron's become such a close friend and collaborator. I mean, he's a brother. I mean, it's so interesting. But I don't like the cliche, find your tribe, but there's something to be said for that. And so Ron's definitely somebody that's part of my tribe. And I'm so glad to be partnered with Ron and doing the same kind of work. Simpatico is a word that's unusually not used very frequently, but it really speaks to the relationship that Ron and I have forged over the last year. So where we left off before that break, Peter, thanks for giving me a chance to come back to these slides. We can run through these quickly. Go ahead and take the next slide, please. This is an outgrowth of the work that RVML has been doing, since we talked about 2001, and especially since I've been attending so many conferences over the years. It's that kind of thing like, if I was doing this conference, it would be done differently in my way kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's a lot of the reason why just the name badges, and some of my friends that might be listening will know what I mean about name badges that face forward and are readable from a distance and have the city that people hail from, et cetera. So in 2015, I was able to garner enough resource. Lori Wagner, somebody I would definitely want to give a shout out, another member of my tribe, dear friend of Ron's as well, helped me produce the first two. It's called The Architects of the New Paradigm Conference Series. Yeah. This is an extension of the work that we do at the library. Something I wasn't able to mention earlier is how so much of our credo, so much of our mission is related to let's make these topics accessible to a mainstream audience that would otherwise be very nervous or uncomfortable approaching what, the ideas of what metaphysical library means to the general public. So as you can see from those pictures, it's very purposely staid is a word that I use, neutral, not flamboyant or
yes.
At all. So I joke with my staff about there's no Buddha statues and tie-dye and incense and those kinds of things. Crystals
right, passing
are very, very absent from our facility, and that is very on purpose.
Indeed.
So same with the ANP conferences. We're trying to present these kinds of ideas and these subjects to a very, again, mainstream audience. I don't mean to use that word pejoratively, by the way, because I know that phrase mainstream can sometimes come across
sure
negatively, but it's a good moniker for that, a good name for that. Anyway, so here's just some of the people that we put on the platform before. You can do the next slide, please. This was our second one. This is 2016 in San Rafael, California. This picture and that whole experience, thank you again to Lori Wagner, was just such a career highlight for me to put these kinds of people on a stage. My parents were in the audience for this particular one.
Oh my gosh.
People it was a full house. I like to say we violated fire code. The hotel let us put a bunch of chairs in the back because we had oversold the conference. 560 people attended that 2-day conference, San Rafael, California, January 2016. My heart is just pounding loudly in my chest right now because my regard for that experience that we had there. So people will recognize the people in this picture, all of whom are close friends of mine. That's Catherine Austin Fitz on the left. That's my dear friend Joel Garbin, who will be visiting Ashland next week. That's Kimberly Carter Gamble of the Thrive Movement, and that's Foster Gamble, Daniel Sheehan, Richard Dolan, and the moderator and co-producer of that event. That's Ron James, who works for MUFON now. Next slide.
Sure is.
This is one we did here in Ashland, Oregon in 2019. These are all dear friends of mine. Next slide. And there's those same people on the podium. That was a fantastic lecture, a conference, the whole thing. This is about media mind control and sociopathy and, not very friendly subjects, frankly. Kudos to the audience for sticking it out through the content there. Here's a standing ovations. Somewhere in that picture is my parents. I'm not going to try and point them out. You can go to the next slide, please.
We'll preserve their identity for security purposes.
Here's the staff that I produce the conferences with. That's my dear friend Abigail Lewis on the left. There's Christina Stewart again. That's Daniel Sheehan's niece. Myself looking so happy to be standing here with all these beautiful people. Again,
how about that?
Event coordinator, my dear friend and mentor, Lori Lorenz there. And then that's Lori Wagner. Glad I got a picture of Lori in here.
And what I'm going to ask you to do now, Jordan, is set up our second video clip for us.
Let's actually not play that second one and go right to the third one called TOD.
You've got it.
You can go ahead and play the...
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus, just like you would in real life. First, you install the application and design your very own unique avatar. Then you're free to explore the various areas of the campus at any time from anywhere. There's so many areas and activities to choose from on the platform. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, a large expo hall, a movie theater, a nightclub, an art gallery, and even a beach. Come attend a conference or take a class or hear a lecture. Meet new friends and interact directly with presenters. It's all right here on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Where in the world will you go?
So let me just speak to a minute, Peter, about how my involvement with Ron and the Observation Deck came to be. So
yes, please.
Early days of the pandemic, we had worked so hard to produce what would have been our 8th Architects of the New Paradigm conference in Seattle, Washington. That was one of the slides that particular conference didn't happen. We had to cancel that. We'd already sold 18 tickets and had to refund those after so much work.
Yep.
And, then of course it was postponed and then eventually canceled. And me and my team were just so heartbroken that is there ever going to be a live experience again? Then Ron Janix calls me, and we already kind of spoke to that a little bit, asking me to help him produce the Disclosure Project commemoration event. And so that was my first day on anything to do with virtual campuses, anything to do with avatars. I knew nothing about that. I'm not a gamer. I'm not interested in attending a conference virtually. It's all about the socializing and the live in-person experience and meeting the speakers and all the stuff that happens at the bar at 2:00 in the morning and all the things that are on the program et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Peter, you know this. You're at so many of those conferences with us. So that was it was tax day. It's easy for me to remember. April 15th, just this year, it was when Ron and I first met, and that was my first time in an avatar, first time.
Oh my gosh.
I took to it immediately, like everybody does. Ron will pick up the story here and say how initially people are a little resistant. It looks like a video game. This is silly. How come we're not doing this on Zoom? And I'll let Ron.
And I had the same feeling myself. I mean, I was a little resistant to it. It's funny how often the same story happens, even with well-known people in the community, such as Whitley Strieber, Alan Steinfeld. You know, they've been on my show before. I'll say, hey, why don't you come on my podcast? Why don't you come do it on the new platform? Well, what? Well, it's got these avatars and it's a thing, and I show them a thing like that, and they have no interest. I don't want to do that. It's cartoony. It doesn't look. Just come on, give it a shot. In 3 minutes, hey, look, I can go over here. Oh, hey, look, there's this. Oh, and they're hooked, and they love it. It's like a roller coaster. You got to get them over that first hill, and then they're sold. And really the idea of this whole thing was I had shopped for many different platforms, and that my partner at the time and I were really trying to figure this thing out because I'm not into this either. I'm not a gamer. I've never been to Second Life. It's just such a foreign idea to me.
Yeah.
But with the pandemic in place, I missed the live conferences. I'm somebody like Jordan and you that love these conferences and love that interaction.
Yes.
Love talking about these topics and with my friends. And I really missed it. And I thought, well, let's see if we can recreate that. And that's what we've done here. And it's the closest we can get, I feel, to replicating a conference experience. This here feels kind of like a Zoom call, and that is a great experience. And look at, you're in Ashland, Oregon, New York, LA. We've got the whole country here. That's incredible in itself. We're just taking that up a slight notch by offering other activities, just like you would at a conference. So while someone's speaking in the auditorium, someone else is doing a Q&A. Someone else just came off stage and they're getting to meet. You can meet Richard Dolan. Like Richard Dolan comes in there sometimes and he'll do these Ask Me Anything events. And his fans listen to his podcast and then they get to walk right up to Richard Dolan and ask him a question. It's incredible. So it's been a nice way to sort of recreate that while we're on the sidelines of life. And even if things do change, we feel like, I can't go to these conferences that are in England. The Megalith conference, Megalithomania, was in England last year. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time. That's a big deal to do. Sit in my underwear and tune in right here from my living room. That I can do. So that's.
And me as a conference producer, excuse me, Ron, it took me a little bit to retool my thinking about how doing things on a virtual platform like this is. The costs and the work to produce a virtual event is obviously so much less. And so that reflects in the ticket prices that we're able to pass along to the attendees. And like Ron just said, we would struggle to get, several hundred people in an auditorium in the States, but now we really can reach a worldwide audience across time zones, even for $20, not $2,000, including the travel, et cetera. And so that alone, it's interesting for me. I think Ron just started to say it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ron. Do I ever want to go back and producing a live conference again? Now that I've gotten a taste of what these sacrilege for me to say that. It absolutely is sacrilege for me to say that as somebody who's so, like the three of us all are, valuing that in-person experience. But the avatar thing, I know it seems silly. There's a psychology that works there. Me and Ron tell each other we can't explain it. You just got to get people in there to experience it for themselves. There's something about the psychology. Ron, you want to pick it up?
Yeah, Peter, if I could say that phrase, truth be told, let me share this with you. Very honestly, actually, I didn't meet Jordan here. I met him earlier at the event in Phoenix.
International.
I met him a year earlier, but I, became much closer with him and got him involved in this just in 2021. Hard to believe because it feels like I've known him for 20 years because we are so in sync. In fact, we're so in sync, we like to talk about these topics, these obscure things, and these. It's nice to have someone that's so aligned as we both are. Yeah. So we'll talk on the phone late at night about this book that we read or whatever, and now it's to the point where genuinely genuinely, hand to God, I don't call him and we talk about this. I'll literally just send him platform ? And we go in the platform, just the two of us as avatars, and have a conversation. Like he took a long road trip recently and listened to several online books. So we just talk and shoot the shit over the phone like you would in the platform. There's something that almost feels, it's hard to describe. I can't put my finger on it, but it feels, it's different. It's like another level of phone call, if you will. It's something like I still look at his avatar and I know that that's him, and it's hilarious how this becomes a way to communicate. And also then it's hands free, so I'm not holding the phone. So maybe we're doing other things or we're working on something, but we're talking in the platform as avatars.
You know,
it's a funny thing that I never thought I'd be doing.
It's funny hearing your dialogue on this, because I also, like anybody that has attended these live events going back for decades, it's you going there for the information. Some of us go there for the work, to make contact with people that we know who have become acquaintances, and from acquaintances, friends, sometimes good friends, to meet other people, to get feedback on how we're doing as writers, or, working on some documentary, what have you. And then, sitting at the bar and having drinks with people and telling stories. It's all part of the experience. And, again, not to romanticize it to that degree, but the fact that we're all being forced over the last almost 2 years to change so much of our behavior, our thinking to a degree, the way that we are looking at the future, the way that we're managing our days. Most of us hopeful that this will ameliorate at a certain point, and live events will become more common again, and we will be more free to move around and less concerned about contracting this virus. So given our options, whether we like it or not, whether we embrace this kind of technology or feel like we've been stuffed in a bag and are being dragged from one room to another while we are vocally letting people know we're not thrilled about this. For me, even hearing you guys talk about it and having a bit of experience from the demonstrations I've seen, and being part of your November 6th conference on marking the 41st anniversary of Travis Walton experience and the men that he was with that night. Obviously, this is a part of the future. And what you're doing right now, just that brief animation that we just saw, people get the idea. But think back, if you're old enough, to when the first video games started to be available. Pong.
Right.
And how at this point for gamers, for you, it can be more real than reality itself. And how over the next years, the sophistication of the imagery that we just looked at will make us look back on this in a few years and say, charming, but we really got away with something on a certain level. This was just the beginning. This was a symbol for a person, this avatar, as opposed to, that looks like the person themselves, dressed
Peter,
the way they would.
May I interrupt you on that?
Yeah,
please.
We could speak to this strongly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, Peter, because at a glance, it does look like 1988 8-bit, Donkey Kong, we jokingly say. The avatars are very purposely dumbed down that way. The resolution is not close to photorealistic. Yeah. There's this fascinating psychological phenomena called the uncanny valley that's too much to explain right now. There's a great Wikipedia page about the psychological phenomena called uncanny valley. So people that are watching this, of course, will be familiar with things like World of Warcraft.
Tell us a little about that right now, though.
Real quick, it refers to a chart or a graph that makes a very distinct dip at some point in the XY axis. That's the valley. And the uncanny refers to the idea that once a avatar or a robot or other kinds of technology that we would interact with becomes too human looking, but not exactly human looking, it becomes creepy to us. So for people that are, and it's fascinating. It's someone's interested in psychology.
I get it.
It's literally
very
like
fascinating. It was a
right?
Japanese, excuse me, Ron, a Japanese psychologist in the 1970s who predicted this phenomena would become an issue. So the point I want to make, though, is at a glance, the technology that we're using, the observation deck campus, looks to be kind of antiquated and quaint, but that's very on purpose. Just last night, I came across an interesting article by the developers of that platform that spoke exactly to this. So when we use the phrase, cutting edge technology, people might look at our platform and say, oh, it looks kind of like, 80s video games. That's by design because of the uncanny valley phenomenon.
Wow. Without having any information on, as you said it made sense.
Yes.
That, again, that kind of creepy feeling. It looks a little too human, but it's not human.
Yes.
Right. Like some of the great animatronics that we're seeing.
Yes, exactly.
These robot faces that are just, that's every nuance, the musculature, the slight inflections of expression.
For people like you, Peter, who are interested in learning more about that, the best resource I can direct a person to is just the Wikipedia page. That's where I learned most about it. There's a lot of information there, including a good graph that I just illustrated there.
If I may, this next image here, this is basically, again, sort of an icon for what we're talking about. Is this a good time to take a look at that last clip, or do you want to lead into it a bit more with the images to come here?
I'm going to skip that extra video. So why don't you just go ahead and have Ron narrate these next 6 or so slides just to kind of give a brief tour of the campus and explain what some of these areas are purposed for, Ron.
Yeah, it's laid out like you would have at a great conference. We have a giant auditorium that seats 1,000 avatars. So just like you would at a conference hall, you'd have that. There's also recreation areas outside. There's individual little breakout rooms and classrooms. Like here's inside the auditorium. You can see there's giant screens. There's 3 screens in the middle of the auditorium where you can, have live presentations just like you would at a regular auditorium. And you can see bunch of avatars in here. I don't know what that green is.
That's one of the plants that's in the auditorium. Here's a chance.
Oh, that's what it is. Now I know. Yeah, the guys, you're almost hiding behind a plant there, buddy.
Yeah. Let's give a quick shout out to our dear friend and colleague, Kate Chassé from Canada.
Hi, Chase. Good to. It was wonderful to see Kate. We were friends online before we actually met. And for me, the fact that she is a librarian elevates her immensely in my life. Librarians are the greatest.
Thank you. And Kate's done just so much work on the platform as a volunteer, teaching us about a lot of the things that we just talked about. She's just been such a dedicated helper for us.
Correct. Yes. And she understands this world way better than we do. So there's an example there. You can see the 3 screens. It looks like a regular stage that you would see at a conference with a podium. Other speakers that speak next sit in those chairs with their avatars, just like a regular event. This is an event we had on the observation deck a week ago.
Also, people that might be looking at these pictures would think, they have to like squint with their avatars. We say there's no such thing as a bad seat in that auditorium. There's these functions that zoom that screen all the way up.
That's right. That's a huge important point. Now, this is the expo hall, just like you have at every conference you've gone to, where people have their little table and they sell their wares and they have a little booth. Here, you can virtually walk up. Richard Dolan will stand there. You could see his face on the screen. He could sign an autograph a book and mail it to you, that you buy it through his site. So even if you're in London, you could feel like you met Richard Dolan, had a little face-to-face meeting with him, have him sign a book right there. It's really an incredible opportunity for people. Yeah, this we have a little art gallery here, and this is going to be the new Paradigm Pavilion, where we archive a lot of Jordan's earlier conferences that you guys that talked about earlier in the show today, and they're archived in here, and you can walk around and stand there and watch them. This thing's open 24/7, 365. It's always going. People can pop in there. Got some time to kill? You watch one of these old conferences and see some of the stuff that he's taken the time to archive. It's really, really nice.
I must say also the practical aspect that erecting a beautiful new structure like this costs a great deal less than doing it in brick and mortar.
Right. Exactly. Oh, look, there's Danny Sheehan, and they're pointing their laser at him. People can have laser pointers. I mean, it's just hilarious.
Peter, I threw this slide in here just to kind of take the real life experience when I used the slide of our Halloween party. That we play around in this campus too. So here is an example of us shining laser pointers in Danny Sheehan's avatar's eyes, as is what this picture was illustrating.
Don't try this at home, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, there we are lined up on the beach during a fireworks show after one of our there it was after the Travis Walton event, November 6th. Peter, you were there at that event.
Yeah.
And afterwards we went down to the beach to recap a little bit, and we set off the fireworks, as you can see, and everybody just talked about how interesting and how much fun it was, and then it morphs into the same sort of conversations that you'd have at a live event. And you talk to people that share the same ideas you do, and maybe they've had an experience, and you get to hear those direct experiences. It's really a wonderful opportunity.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there he is.
Well, 3 reprobates here to be sure. Yeah.
That was Peter with Jennifer Stein at the Travis Walton event.
And Bob Terrio, who is instrumental in working on projects with Jennifer and I over the years, one of my favorite tech people ever, and a great researcher and writer himself. And back to the Metaphysical Library. That does it for the images. So with the rest of our time, let's talk a bit about where we go from here. We are at a moment right now that none of us really could have predicted a few short years ago in terms of the ridicule factor melting away from the subject of serious, anomalous UFOs, their implications for humanity, with more and more folks who, previous to this, would, like Jordan, you and I were talking about in that transitional period for both of us, would never have spoken about in public, that they took it seriously, would have been very careful about who they discussed it with. And for me, the demographic can be kind of summed up as more every year, more and more people care less and less what other people think about what they think about the subject of UFOs as truly anomalous objects, and again, their implications. I'm wondering if you feel, as somebody who has a hand on the pulse, and you too, Ron, of the wider area of non-standard topics, if you think it may follow that the same will be able to be said for other non-standard areas of subject in the future, or that right now it seems only concentrated on the subject of truly anomalous UFOs and their cover-up.
You want to speak to that, Jordan? I was going to bring up that, Steve
both of you
addressed this last night. He said there's more stuff in Hollywood right now coming out in the next 6 months on these topics than ever. So,
just last night we had Stephen Bassett on the platform, and Ron's recounting something that Steve said that wasn't recorded, unfortunately, during the question and answer period about exactly that. I have a lot to say on that, actually. One thing that comes to mind as you're asking the question, Peter, and you know this, you've traveled a lot internationally. It's interesting that there's something about the United States culture over the last, 50 years or so, I'm going to guess, where there's almost been this, well, not almost, we're learning now that it's been a very purposefully engineered stigma. What does Stan Friedman call it? The laughter curtain is the phrase that Stan Friedman coined to speak to this. I don't find that to be true at all. You travel into, especially like South America and other parts of Europe and Brazil, for example, and Chile, for example, the militaries of those kinds of countries are like, hey, citizens, if you see UFOs, here's the hotline number. We want to hear from you. We're not going to shut you down and ridicule you, et cetera. Right. So one point I could make of many is it seems to be a somewhat uniquely American phenomena that has this strong what do you say? What's the word I'm looking for? Implied? No, can't come up with the right word that I need right here, right now. But I think you all know what I'm saying, that there's just something been engineered into our society. And it's so interesting for me now, the 1952 CIA Robertson panel, for example, a lot of people that study this will know what I'm referencing, that, for a long time you'd never hear about that. Then for many years, as I began studying these things, you see the redacted versions of those FOIA documents. But now, thank you to John Greenwald, another good buddy in our community, has gone and found the unredacted versions of the Robertson panel report. There's the Walt Disney Corporation named right in there. All these Madison Avenue advertising firms that were paid for by taxpayer dollars to mind control the public into not believing and seeing that there's anything to that. So the idea that you brought up, Peter, that now is a whole different time. For me, disclosure, as being such a strong disclosure advocate, following my experience with the Disclosure Project and Stephen Greer, hard disclosure, capital D disclosure, as people like Steve Bassett will phrase it, versus a softer disclosure. Like, let's just kind of lay this out slowly for the public to acclimate to these things. So it's not we interrupt this news broadcast, I call it, that would be very shocking to humanity at large if, hey, basically we've been lying to you this entire time. So I guess I'm as best I can, welcoming the idea that it's been a little bit more gentle in how the general public, especially us Americans, have been introduced to these things through the History Channel programs like that. There's a whole lot to say there, and that's why I'm a little bit reticent to actually use the word. I'm glad that it's happening that way. I mean, the idea that there's somebody who's in control of this disclosure process. It's not nearly as grassroots, I think, as we like to think. Being part of that grassroots effort myself, it seems to be very, very, very managed. Referencing just what Steve Bassett was even speaking about last night, for example. Go ahead, Ron. I know you have thoughts on this too.
Yes, please.
No. I mean, that's my point. Was how Steve said there's so much coming out on this. I feel. I don't think I've ever felt like how Jordan says it, the closet thing and whatever. I don't really care what people think, I guess. I've always been somebody that talks about these unknown things, and among my friends, even if they don't believe, I mean, they're able to have conversations with me. I've not had any of the ridicule factor, or of course I don't make any outstanding claims that I've actually had a direct contact. So maybe that would change, but I do feel like it is moving in that direction as I keep hearing more and more people open to it. And shows like on History Channel and Discovery Channel and Travel Channel do reach a wider audience. And now when I talk about these things, other people that are well outside this community do have some sense of what I'm talking about, and I think that's great.
I know we need to wrap this up in just a second. One of the things that I feel so well qualifies Captain Ron Janix here to play the role that he does, doing the interviews like you're doing now, Peter. Ron's very, very skeptical, and he's very good, has this, very convivial way with his guests to kind of hold their feet to the fire. And he's got a few different ways that he does that. Ron, do you want to speak a little bit to that? How Ron takes this kind of hard skeptic thing, but doesn't rub it in people's faces.
Yeah, I definitely, I feel like you should not certainly make fun of the person or the subject or whatever. But on the same time, when someone says to you, well, I always like to say, what's the source information? Where did you get that information? How do you come to this conclusion?
Good.
And when you say, well, the chair told me. Okay. I mean, maybe, but that's tough for someone like me to take. And I always think to myself, well, how am I going to go tell my buddies that are full on 3D? How am I going to tell them this? So I really want to try to bridge that gap. And we all, as Art Bell fans, feel that that's sort of missing now. He was sort of the guy that would challenge. Challenge is probably the wrong word.
It could be the right word. I was a guest on our show a number of times over the years, and I got challenged, to put it very mildly.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's needed then, challenging. I just don't mean it in a derogatory way. I've certainly never gone after someone like, I don't believe you. crazy or whatever, or anything like that. But I do think you can't just give people an open mic and say, just say whatever. Where are you getting this information? How are you coming to your conclusions?
Yeah.
Let's support this. Let's look at this from a real common sense. Take a look at this thing. Is this possible? Is this probable? And I think that that's sort of been lacking in this community. And I would like to kind of try to encourage that, because then I think that brings in other people. That'll widen our audience, because you're not just accepting these extraordinary claims. You know what I mean? You're drilling down a little bit further.
Yes.
That's what I sort of think the mission statement is here for me personally.
Good point. What is coming up next on the observation deck?
Well, we have an event this Thursday. It's going to be the Consciousness 2021 from Beyond Being Human, which is a gentleman, Michael Ney, who lives in Australia. There you go, bringing the whole world together, right, Jordan? This guy's in Australia, but he's got, well-known speakers in this community being part of his event all day Thursday, and avatars are going to come in there, and he likes the whole idea too. And he, just like we talked about here, you're in New York, he's in Oregon. Well, now here's a guy in Australia. I think he's got to come on at 2 a.m. or some crazy hour, because he's like a day ahead. Every time we have these meetings, it's really hard to do the math. But so that's coming up. And then in January, Jordan and I are going to start trying to expand a few more things. We're going to try to look at some of these older ANP conferences that Jordan's done.
Yes.
These things are now sitting on the shelf. So I'm going to sort of try to revisit them, and sort of like the old Friday night movies where they would play the old movies and have a new host. Well, I'm going to take a look at these old conferences and take a look at some of these speakers that were documented over the last number of years, and maybe a new audience will see them in our avatar community. And we're going to be doing that every week in January, and then we'll probably have a big event at the end of the month too, as soon as we can come up with something.
Great. When I asked you about what's coming up immediately, it was kind of a rhetorical question, in that Michael and I have been back and forth several times just today, and he is very much looking forward to working with you guys on this. Jordan, what's coming up next at the Metaphysical Center?
One thing I didn't get to mention earlier, and again, thank you for this time, Peter. It's delightful to be able to do this with you. I know we've been talking about doing something like this for a long time. So I wanted to thank you and the whole KGRA staff. Race Hobbs has been a big supporter of Architects of the New Paradigm series from the very beginning. So a shout out to dear Race and our producer Bill here for putting us together and keeping us on time. So I just wanted to get a thank you and to you guys for that. In addition to the library services that we've done since 2001 in Ashland, of course, we've had lecture series, conferences, et cetera, throughout the many years. And so a lot of what we built this new facility for, I showed you the pictures at the beginning there that had the coffee shop that doubled as a event production space. So when you ask what's coming up at the Metaphysical Library, nothing to speak of because of our friend, the worldwide pandemic.
The same wonderful opportunity to borrow this extraordinary amount of material and, use the facility per se, but understood.
Otherwise, we would be doing our usual, on our web calendar, there's, going back to 2001, there's hundreds, might be more than that, of events that we've done. I'm talking, 30, 50 person things that we've done here at our own facility. So unfortunately, Peter, I'm so sorry to say we are doing nothing because we cannot. Well, we are literally, muzzled. The
same thing is going on around the world. We're
the whole world
together in that sense. And I'm optimistic enough to feel this will change. We will look back on this time from a safer time, a more informed time, and value the real life events when we are not just together in the most wonderful kind of digital arena, virtual facilities possible, but back with our fellow human beings, again, trading stories, listening to each other, drinking at the bar, and, making the deeper connections that make our lives so rich and meaningful.
Thank you, Peter. We're doing it right here, right now. And I share your optimism and hope for the future that this too shall pass. And part of the reason I wanted to reference all the events that we've produced here in Ashland, Oregon over the years and across the country with the Architects of the New Paradigm series is on our website. Of course, we have a YouTube channel that has many of those lectures archived there, in addition to some of the stuff that we've done on the observation deck so far. So again, our website, rvml.org, is the portal to learning about all the, it's all free. We don't even do the monetization thing either. So there's no commercials that play on our YouTube videos. So there's a ton of content there. A lot of it's underutilized, all kinds of speakers talking at all kinds of subjects. And again, another thank you to our common friend, David Zaslow. He's let us use his sanctuary on several occasions to produce our events in the past. So when you watch some of those videos, you'll recognize his sanctuary there.
That's great. Ron, Janix, before I go to final announcements and give folks all of your locations virtually again, any final thoughts before we move on?
Well, I was going to say that I feel, just even hearing him talk, look how people like Jordan that so unselfishly put so much work in this, people like Cheryl Costa, people like yourself, people that have really put the work in, are just these unsung heroes. And I just really feel I still want to do an all-day event, and sort of pay tribute to all of these kind of people, because this is incredible stuff that's tireless, the efforts that they've put in, and it's so valuable to the rest of us. And I just wish people would recognize it more. I feel it's underappreciated.
Oh, thank you, Ron. And it is a calling. There's parts of this work that I absolutely hate and I'm not very good at, and it's very stressful and I don't want to do it, but I keep coming back to it because it's a calling. And I just recognize that.
Yes, that's really the truth. It is a calling, and an important one that I think people in the future will look back on and appreciate more than we imagine. And Jordan and Ron, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight, and make sure that our viewers and listeners know that they can find you. The URL for the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library is rvml.org. Architects of the New Paradigm can be found at anpconference.com. On YouTube, rvml/anp. Facebook page at Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library, and on Twitter, RVML Director. And for Ron, the observation deck is theobservationdk.com. The observation deck on YouTube is just that. Facebook at the observation deck, DK, Instagram at the observation deck official, and on Twitter at Observation DK. Next week, my guest will be Ralph Blumenthal, distinguished lecturer at Baruch College of the City of New York and summer journalism instructor at Phillips Exeter Academy. Blumenthal was an award-winning reporter for the New York Times from 1964 until 2009, and has written 7 books on organized crime and cultural history. His most recent book, published earlier this year, highly recommended by me and many others, The Believer, Alien Encounters, Hard Science, and the Passion of John Mack. Ralph Blumenthal led the Times Metro team that won the Pulitzer Prize for breaking news coverage of the 1993 truck bombing of the World Trade Center in 2001, and that for starters. Join me and Mr. Blumenthal next week, and stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other.